Welcome back to McNulty's Book Corral. This is day 2, where I plunge into some comic book boxes and I'm going completely crazy. The usual type of thing that I do here, which is to collect multiple copies. And I consider this one of my favorite Nick Cardy covers. What a great Curt Swan cover. They have a skeletonized, can I speak English? A skeletonized Superman here in a cave that Superman finds with Perry White. Here, and then we have this here. So here is Superman 329, which is the only Silver Age Superman where I had a letter in the letters page. This is exciting, you have to admit. In a previous episode, the first episode, I talked about 80-page Giant number 1, and I had 2 copies to show you. Well, there's the third missing copy. I told you, it gets weird here. Okay, so I have to comment on Swamp Thing. Here is the first issue, of course, which led to an ongoing series. This is a Bernie Wrightson cover. I have the original run of these. They're a little bit out of order in here right now, but these were such great books. These have been reprinted many, many times. I still might occasionally collect Swamp Thing. I'm not currently buying any DC comics at all because they're terrible. And I have enough. Then we went on to, of course, the saga of the Swamp Thing, which when he came back, and I have all of these. And so forth. I have numerous stacks of Swamp Thing. Actually, I have a huge box of Swamp Thing. So in a minute, I'll show you hanging on my wall here in my nook. This is the nook that leads us into my main library. I have a photo that Dick Durock signed for me. I was a fan of both films he was in and the TV show. I thought they were good. The character hasn't been done right since. Alan Moore, of course, then came along and he did such a magnificent job. And then you have even later Swamp Things. This is a later issue from someone different. That was when it was under Vertigo. So I have the, don't remember when Alan Moore began writing his version of Swamp Thing, which are so famous. I have all of those. I have the original series, and I have the saga series, and I have some that came later, and so forth. I'm a big fan of Swamp Thing. I think that was a really original, creative character for DC Comics to put out there. Even before Alan Moore, they were fun to read. It was just an interesting character. A lot to be done with it over the years. I thought the saga of the Swamp Thing, I thought this run was pretty good too. So Dick Durock, I met Dick Durock at a convention, and I interviewed him for a magazine, and he was really fun to talk to. He told a lot of interesting stories, and one of the few autographed photos of a horror actor I have, actually the only autographed photo I have of a horror actor, so to speak, on the wall is Dick Durock. Okay, so I hope this lighting's a little better here. I was going through this box, and I found some interesting things. These are DC Comics horror comics, Secrets of the Haunted House. This was from that era. I think these would have been. Yeah, this is 79. So the 1970s, DC Comics put out really, really good horror comics. And they're so fun to read. Look at the beautiful covers on this. They couldn't do anything like this today if they tried. They do occasionally still try to do horror comics over at DC Comics. They try to do a lot of things, but they're dismal failures. House of Secrets was another one with the great cover art. Who did this? Was this Kaluta? I don't remember who did these. But this stuff is so much fun, and this is 78. This is really fun. The Unexpected was a great comic book back in the day. Here's another with a fantastic cover artwork. Stories were good. DC Comics did a pretty good job, considering they were restricted by the Comics Code Authority. I do believe this is a Neil Adams cover, and this must be a little earlier because this would be... Yeah, this is a House of Mystery from 68. So these are in the wrong box. These were actually in a Superman box. Here's a House of Mystery, Mouse of History. That's funny. Tongue twister. Here's one that doesn't belong in here, but it's fun. Marvel Premiere, Weird World. So this is, again, I'm showing you my disorganization. I have these boxes that about 5 years ago I had made progress on organizing these boxes, and then it went to hell. Moves happen, things happen. Here's a House of Secrets with a Jim Starlin cover. If you're familiar with these names. Time Warp. Here's 2 Captain Marvels that are in the wrong box. Okay, so I got to move those. The Witching Hour. This was another great one from that period. I love this type of spooky cover because this is like a traditional Pulp Fiction magazine cover. And this is, again, these are comic books emulating the classic golden era of Pulp Fiction, where you hooked the reader with first the cover using primary colors and interesting artwork, and then you would get them to read it, and so forth and so on. Just great, fantastic stuff that they couldn't do today. I don't know why they can't do it today. I think they're afraid to be traditional. Everybody's going for dark, gritty, especially with the coloring. The writing isn't very good in the horror comics they do. Here's a really funny one. What a great cover for Ghosts. The 2 police officers. Here is another one. This is priceless material here. Alas, Poor Yorick, I knew him. Secrets of the Haunted House, and he knew his killer and the man who held Yorick's skull. So if you are familiar with Shakespeare, this will resonate with you. What was the year on this? Again, this is 78. Take 2, okay? Remember I said that was the missing third one? Well, no. It's the missing 4th one. I have 4 of these. I didn't even know it. 4 of the 80-page giants. Number 1. All right, here's a fun little book. This is my original. This is Archie's Madhouse Annual number 4. Here's this beautiful Halloween cover. I have to mention this. There's always something that I find when I'm going through 40 boxes. Remember this? Of course you do. I have an episode about going to Daniel Boone's grave sites, and I talk about Fess Parker. Were you a member of the Fess Parker as Daniel Boone Trailblazers Club? I was. Take 5,297. We have to talk about Superboy for just a minute. Superboy was created by the same guy that created Superman, Jerry Siegel. And that character has been around a long time. And the early ones, here again, Aliens, right? You had Aliens on there. You can't get away from that. All sorts of things. Superboy was fun. Here he is with the Black Knight. The Black Knight also met Superman, did he not? Superboy's Greatest Hoax with Kurt Swan did most of the artwork on some of these. And time travel was not unusual for the period. The Raid of the Super Outlaws. The Legion of Superheroes was a major group for me in the 60s with Adventure Comics. And they would cross over into Superboy comics. Crypto the Superdog was everybody's best friend. Here's a classic. This is a classic issue here with The Curse of the Superboy Mummy. The 7 Insect Lives of Lana Lang, introducing B-Boy. Obviously, this is something written for a younger reader, not adults, but they liked them. And The Checkered Years, of course. This is one of my favorite issues. Superboy 132, the hero who was braver than Superboy. His name was Supremo. And this is classic Kurt Swan cover. Great issue. I'm surprised I don't have 2 copies of it. And here is another one that I do have 2 copies of. Superboy 136, the Decoy of the Doom statues with the checkered cover. And this is classic DC Silver Age right here. Really fun stuff. Yes, I have 2. Superboy's Stolen Identity. That is a classic Neil Adams right there, I believe. The first Superboy Annual here. No, I don't have 4 copies of this one. And this is probably the most important Superboy Legion of Superhero stories ever written. I believe Jim Shooter wrote this, which is during this period. It was the ghost of Ferrolad after Ferrolad died. In this issue, he came back. This was before that trend began, where characters were killed off and then they came back and they really got transformed. Marvel ruined a lot of characters that way by killing them off. They should have left them dead. So Jim Shooter killed off Ferrolad, and really haunting issue. This is, and I do have 2 of these, by the way. I don't know where the other one is. I'll probably find it next week, or whenever I do the next look-see. Here are here are 2 where we have giants. Giant people. Remember I was talking about characters would become giants, and then here we have giants. Okay.
And Kurt's going to the artwork. And
okay, and now we get to the Amazing Spider-Man, and this is where the sad story begins. It's not what I have, it's what I no longer have. That's right, you can guess it. I sold the first 10 Amazing Spider-Mans way back in the day. I had Spider-Man #1 signed by Stan Lee in 1977, and I sold them, oh gosh, I had to do it probably about 1980 or so, because there was no money. And the money that I received for those 10 was, at the time, really fantastic. Spider-Man was, in its day, one of the greatest comic books ever. It was fantastic to read these. Here are some older issues that I have. It's interesting how many people did what I did back in the 70s, late 70s and 80s. You had this stuff, and then we had to sell it, and then you never got back to collecting the first 10. I don't need the first 10. I have so many. I have 40 boxes. I have 40, probably more than 40 now. I have more than 40 full-size boxes of comics. I don't necessarily need more comic books. And the original, gosh, these were such fun books to read. And then you have the Lizard, and this is one of my favorite. This sequence where Spider-Man was fighting the Green Goblin. These are out of order 2. I don't know how I did that. Again, my disorganization. So here's Web of Spider-Man Annual #1, and Peter Parker Annual #1. I don't know what happened there. Here is Giant Size Spider-Man and Dracula #1. Here is Spider-Man 300, which I understand people really like this book. Okay. Here is Spider 122, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and then 121, which I also have. And then, of course, this is 39. This is part of that Green Goblin sequence. These are all out of order. Here is 36. I don't know what the run is I have after I sold the 10. I also sold, by the way, I also got rid of my early Fantastic Four. Some of you boys out there are getting worked up like a bunch of coon dogs in heat, thinking he just said what? I did say that. I sold the first 10 Amazing Spider-Mans that I had, and all of the early Fantastic Fours. And I don't regret it, because at the time that's what you do in life. You have to get it done, boy. You need the money. You got it sitting here. You do it. So no regrets from me, and we'll wrap this one up. And it's Chamber of Chills #1, Marvel. When Marvel was doing good horror comics, that was fun. Chamber of Darkness #1, that was fun too. And Tower of Shadows #1. The 70s there was this resurgence in horror comics, and they were okay. I mean, I did have the Tomb of Dracula, including the first one, and I sold those 2 years ago. The Monster Frankenstein. Here we go, Jack Kirby, Machine Man. It's probably worthless, but Jack Kirby was Jack Kirby. Oh, here's a Daredevil Special 3. I didn't even know that was in there. That goes in the Daredevil box when I find it. Doc Savage. I'm a Doc Savage fan. Ms. Marvel #1, which is fun. So I have 2 of those. And then we have Tales of Suspense number 94. This be MODOK. This is Captain America. That belongs in a Captain America box. Or an Iron Man box. I have the Iron Mans are great too. I have a whole box. Strange Tales. Marvels were so much fun. You know, the Marvel comics were so well written too. Spider-Woman number 1, the original. Not the phony one. Here is one of the greats. Red Sonja number 1. Yes, well, that's enough of that. The Sensational She-Hulk. This is, I think this is the John Byrne. And then this is the first She-Hulk. So I have both She-Hulks. I'm sure they put out another one because there was a show recently. I'm not interested in that. I've come across a bunch of Captain Marvels. Here's Captain Marvel 2 and 3. And then we have Captain Marvel 1. Didn't Jim Starlin do this? I met Jim Starlin. I have over here on this shelf an autographed book by Jim Starlin. I believe he did that. I'm probably wrong. Oh, look. Oh, you guys, this is amazing that I actually have this here. Look at this. It's Gunsmoke. It's Gene Autry. Let's hunt down the bad guys. So I have a lot of work to do here in McNulty's book route, getting these boxes organized, and then I'll decide if I'm going to downsize anything or not. I don't know if I will. It's hard to say. Every time I look at a box, I'm doing this. I'm going, okay, what do you got there? And what's this over here? And holy cow, you know. So, lots I haven't gotten to. Daredevil, Captain America, Iron Man, Wonder Woman, independent comics. I have stacks and stacks of independent comics. Airboy, I still have my Airboys. I have all sorts of stuff. I don't even know what I have because I haven't looked in years. So just a quick look for those of you interested in comic books, comic art, sequential art. The good stuff is the old stuff, not the stuff they're publishing today. I stand in opposition to the poor coloring, the poor writing, the revisionist history that they're putting on the characters. Superboy being a prime example. The way he's depicted today is not the way he was created. If they wanted to do something along those lines, for example, I think if there had been anyone intelligent working at DC Comics, they would have created a gay character who was a superhero, and that would have been a collector's item. That would have been great if they had done it right, but they chose not to. They chose, you know, I don't believe in this revisionist. Batman has been in the toilet for decades now. He's no longer a detective. It's just, anyways, I can go on. The things wrong with the comic book industry today, besides the poor writing, They don't know how to wrap up a story. They don't know how to write a story and just make it 3 issues and it's a story. They connect everything to miniseries, and the Batman's really bad. There are so many Batman miniseries out there over the last 30 years, and they suck. They're horrible. So, I'm going to stop there. If you are interested in sequential art, classics of comic books, go look for some older stuff. Look for some of the reprints that Marvel and DC put out. And you will be entertained. And you'll see the best of the best, especially with the writing, with Marvel, the stuff in the 60s and on. With DC, the writing got better in the late 60s through the 70s. The artwork was always entertaining. You had classic guys, and they knew what a color palette was. They knew how to use colors to create depth, to make it a 3D effect. A flat page, to give it depth, is an art form. It's called sequential art. And I'll stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Stay well, stay happy. Feed your brain. Find yourself a comic book to read.